when that deal fell apart, I really thought my life was over.
Bonnie McKee, legend. You wrote California Girls, Teenage Dream, Last Friday Night, Part of Me, Wide Awake, Roar, Hold It Against Me with Britney Spears. You've written for Kesha and Cher, Christina Aguilera.
I have such extreme luck. I either strike gold or like everything falls apart.
Welcome to Life Rhythms radio show.
I knew Katy socially already. We were friends. We were both starving artists.
And then you see her go off.
It was really hard. We had a falling out. I watched her blow up from afar. I was, of course, jealous and hurt. Then she was signed to Dr. Luke. He was like, I'll sign you as an artist and I'll sign you as a writer, but only if you work on the next Katy Perry album. For a while, I was like, I don't want to be behind the scenes. I don't want to just be a songwriter. Once we started writing, it was just magic. It's like I have a superpower. Nobody in the room knows that I wrote that song.
Isn't that so interesting?
Suddenly, catapulted into hit songwriter status.
I have this theory that in this kind of depth is written into songs, even the pop songs.
People can feel the heart. I hadn't been that close to that kind of success before. I wanted it my whole life, but I was really in the back of my mind okay, I really want to do this artist thing again. When is that going to happen? When American Girl came out, I was like, oh my God, I'm finally here. I wanted my own number one. Came so close. We got to number 22, and then the label was like, yeah, it's dead. I was going to open up for the Jonas Brothers on tour, and the day before the tour started, the Jonas Brothers broke up.
What?
Not giving up. I've never been good with authority. I'm making this shit happen.
Yeah.
I really don't like being held back. Found a forum online that was all dedicated to this unreleased album. Okay, what do the fans want?
My favorite song on the album is Forever 21.
Right in this moment, the world is hurting. People want escapist pop. And so I'm like, great, I have more of that for you. Just party for a second. I don't need to be number one, but I just want to reach as many people as I can. And then we can dance and cry.
Life Rhythms with Ryan Sky. Observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. Welcome, Bonnie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So you remember I approached you after the show and I was like, I'd love to have you on.
Yes, and I was so excited. I was like, hell yeah.
I love that. So first of all, you have your album out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's Hot City.
Mm-hmm.
And you originally finished it was in the 2010s?
Yeah. I signed a record deal. I was signed to Epic, and I put out a song called American Girl, which did pretty well. And then the label and I did not see eye to eye, so I ended up leaving. But I had recorded this whole album, and when you record an album at a record label, they own the masters because they paid for the recording. And so I kind of had to grieve this album and just give it up, and I was so bummed. And over the years, I put out another EP called Bombastic. I continued putting music out independently, but over the years, there were fans online that were like, we want to hear this shelved album. And they were trading demos. They were leaking demos. They were trading bootleg live recordings. They really loved these songs. People got the lyrics tattooed, all this stuff. And I was like, well, wow. Damn. So when I finally got on TikTok a couple years ago, because I was kind of late to the game. And when I finally got on, everyone was like, when I would post, they'd be like, we want Slay. We want Forever 21. We want Hot City. And I was like, well, damn, if they still want it, I always wanted to put it out, but I didn't think I was allowed to because the label owned the masters. So I pulled a Taylor Swift, and I re-recorded everything myself, and I went ahead and gave the people what they wanted.
It's also good to know that they wanted it too, because you think I would think too, if so much time has passed, I would think, oh, the window's closed. Yeah. I miss the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, also, pop music changed. Around the time that I left the label is right when Lorde was coming out and Drake was king, and it was pop music shifts. It's 5-year cycles or something. And so I was like, well, maybe pop music will come back, and it came back. And I keep seeing all of this stuff online about everyone's nostalgic for 2010s pop music, and I was like, well, I have this whole album that I literally wrote in that era. So if you like sparkly pop, then Hot City's for you.
Wow. Does it feel like there's a divine element behind it, like part of God's plan?
Yeah, I feel like there is. It's all about timing, and the stars have to align, And I think it's nice to have some space from it and really appreciate it for what it is. And also, I got some time to think about what my idea of success is, because it used to be being number one. If I'm not number one, then if I'm not on the radio, then I'm a failure. And the world has changed so much, and the music industry has changed so much since then that I can find my people, I can find my niche. And the most important thing to me is just reaching the fans that want to hear it,
Yeah. Wow. Your relationship with fame and with success, it must be a wild one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it almost took me out in my early 20s. I was just like, and I see so many young artists really struggle with it, where like they feel like if it doesn't work out the first time, then their life is over. And like I definitely went to a very dark place. But the first time I fell on my face after my first record deal, when I was able to get back up, that was a really important lesson for me. And so now, like, anytime I fall on my face, I'm like, well, I can just get up again.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Wow. You moved to LA when?
2001, I believe.
2001. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how soon after that were you writing the Katy Perry songs?
Oh, it took me years. Because when I first moved here, I had a record deal. So I was an artist. I started out as an artist, like singer, songwriter stuff, whatever. The album came out. It's really embarrassing, but there are a lot of fans that still love it. So I try not to dog on it too much. But and then when that deal fell apart, I really thought my life was over. And I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I learned that there were people that were professional songwriters. I didn't even know that. Like, I was so young and naive. I had no idea. And I met this producer who was just signing a publishing deal with like a tiny little boutique publishing company. I was like, what's publishing? Like, what is that? How does this work? And so I was like, well, I can write songs. Like, put me in, coach. I was like broke. I had nothing going on. I was like, I need something. And so I kind of just accidentally got into the songwriting game. And I knew Katy socially already. We were friends. We met selling our clothes at a thrift store.
Yeah. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah. We were both starving artists. We both had been signed and dropped, or maybe I was just about to be dropped when I met her. And we were selling our clothes at a place called Wasteland on Melrose in Los Angeles, and getting rejected. They're like very snobby.
I know. I tried.
I'm like, oh, look at this like vintage Gucci thing, and they're like $12. I'm like, great, okay. So we had our like garbage bags full of clothes, and we were selling or whatever. And she was like, oh, you're Bonnie McKee, because she knew my work, because we, we're both kind of industry darlings or whatever. But I never got recognized in public, and I also didn't have any friends my age that were in the industry. Like, my friends were all like, Suicide Girls and skateboarders, and like I was kind of I ran with a rowdy crowd, and I was just so excited to have a peer, to meet another person my age that was pursuing the same things. So we were fast friends, and then she called me in to work on the second album, and the rest is history.
But that's interesting, though, to me also, is from that moment to the second album, she had a first album. So you experienced meeting her, knowing her, part of the scene, you're both struggling artists, and then you see her go off and become Katy Perry, put that first album out that you weren't a part of. What was that like? Like, did you feel like you would never hear from her again? And then also you're kind of, I'm just thinking from my own perspective, I'd be thinking like, I'm never going to hear from this person again. Maybe it's never going to happen for me. Like, I don't know. I'm curious what went through your head.
Honestly, it was really hard. It was really hard because, we were friends, and then we had a falling out as, 19-year-old girls do. And so I didn't talk to her for a while. I like watched her blow up from afar and was, of course, jealous and hurt and whatever. But then, I started getting cuts, like with Kelly Clarkson and, Leighton Meester and whatever,
Okay.
And then it kind of made sense for me to come in. So she was signed to Dr. Luke, and he had heard my work, and he wanted to sign me. And I was like, wow, okay, this could change my life, right? And he was like, I'll sign you as an artist, and I'll sign you as a writer, but only if you work on the next Katy Perry album. And I was like,
oh, interesting.
Fuck that. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I was so mad. I was still bitter. And she didn't want me there either. Wow. But I came in and, I was like, hello. I'm like, hi, it's been a while. And then once we started writing, it was just magic. And like, it was all water under the bridge. So.
Wow. Where did the writing take place?
At a studio called Conway in Los Angeles.
Oh, it was in Los Angeles. Wow. That's so interesting. Okay. So. And by this point, you were mainly writing. And when did I want to get the timeline in my mind together. So you were writing the second album. About what time was this? What year?
I want to say like 2010, maybe 2009. I really don't remember.
Somewhere around there. And then when these songs that we are hearing now on your album, were they being done around this time as well?
I had started. I spent a couple years when I signed with Luke. There was just several years of just hardcore writing where I was suddenly like catapulted into like hit songwriter status. Yeah. So I was working on the Britney Spears Femme Fatale album. I had a big song with Taio Cruz. Dynamite.
We should say it. Yeah.
And so that like kept me busy, but I was really in the back of my mind like, okay, I really want to do this artist thing again. Like, when is that going to happen? But Luke was just like, okay, well, we got to do Britney. Like, it was just opportunities that I could not say no to, or I was like, okay, after this album. And then I finally was like, okay, I really want to be an artist and like TikTok, And so I ended up signing a second record deal at Epic. And that's when I started making the album, was when I was working on the Prism album with Katy. So working on Roar and Legendary Lovers, if you know the deep cuts.
Yeah. And also, what was it like? What is it like type-wise in terms of you were both industry darlings? Mm-hmm. And did you feel like there were similarities between the two of you? Was there competition in that aspect of it?
No, I think once I was like not actively trying to be an artist around here. Like, look, as a songwriter, I am in the service industry, essentially. Like, I am there to serve a client. So I'm not the star when I'm in the room, and I don't try to be, And so I think, when I know my place and I like put on my therapist hat and my songwriter hat, then it's like there's no competition in that way. I'm there to help the artist.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I asked because I wondered what it would be like to be writing for somebody that maybe I would feel like kind of has a similar vibe as me, and I'm wanting to be an artist, and I'm like writing them songs, and then they're going to take my songs.
Well, no, because Katy is an incredible songwriter in her own right, and she has her own vision and her own thing that she does. And so I'm really just like drawing from her ideas, I'm not going to bring in the ideas that I want to keep for myself,
Yeah.
But she did. There was a moment where she was like, she knew I was working on the album, and she was like, I want you to send it to me. And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, what, are you afraid I'm going to steal it? I was like, I'm not going to send it to you. Wow.
Yeah. What is it about? You're a melody girl, right?
Mm-hmm. I do melody and I do lyric.
But I mean, like your strength. Well, but I'm in terms of like for me, what stands out are your melodies.
Oh, thank you. Well,
not that that's your only thing you do, but like you're really good at melodies.
Well, I mean, on the Katy stuff, that was mainly Max Martin, who is the melody king. He is like the absolute, literal best songwriter in the world. Yeah. So I learned from him.
Okay.
But on a lot of the hits that we wrote, I wrote very minimal melody stuff. I was mainly there for lyrics.
This track for you is so interesting because had you not gone on this road that you went on with writing for Katy and working with Max, learning everything you learned, and now the music, I'm sure that now the music you're making is much different than had you done the artist thing and just kept doing
God,
that.
I'm so grateful for this like mentorship that I had under Max Martin. Like that, I still am like starstruck when I see him, where I'm just like, I'm not worthy. I love Max Martin so much. And it absolutely made me a better songwriter and a better artist too. And being just like front row to see how the machine works in the label part of things, and how fame works and like what that's like. It was a little bit like scary to be like, oh, like, do I want that? Fuck, that's crazy.
Well, on a much smaller scale, just my show here, having people on the show, I get a front row seat into their lives. People who've won Grammy Awards and people who've done X, Y, and Z. And it's like I get to kind of see what it's like. And then I ask myself questions like, do I want to be part of that? Like, did your view of the industry change a lot through this experience? Were you surprised?
No, because I had already had my first record deal and whatever. I hadn't been that close to fame and like being number one. Like, I had like put out an album that like kind of flopped and like had a cult following or whatever, but I hadn't been that close to that kind of success before. But I wanted it. I wanted it my whole life, that I was just like, okay, this is how it works. Now I'm getting to like pull back the curtain and see how it really works.
Yeah. Did you get to go to concerts and hear your songs being performed in stadiums and stuff?
Yes, it was so incredible. I remember, I think the first time that I heard one of my songs performed live was like in a setting like that it was like the Billboard Awards or something in Vegas or something. And Taio played Dynamite. And like when the chorus hit, the stage like shone the lights at the audience and everyone had their hands up and everyone was singing it around me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, like I just was like tearing up. Like, this is so powerful. It really gave me, because I think for a while I was like, I don't want to be behind the scenes. Like, I don't want to just be a songwriter. This isn't what I signed up for. And then like once I had that experience, I was like, oh my God, this is incredibly powerful. And it's like I have a superpower. Like I'm a secret superhero where it's like nobody in the room knows that I wrote that song.
Isn't that so interesting? They're all singing a song and you're just, that must be so wild. And I wish we could put it into words. Is there a way to describe to people? Because I know what you're saying about that. it being so powerful. Is there a way? Do we know what that power is? Like, do we know?
Is it
a transcendent thing?
It feels like a connection. Like I feel connected with the audience when I see people singing the songs that I wrote. Like I feel like I've touched all of these people, and it's very gratifying, and it makes me. It's very fulfilling for me.
Is it spiritual?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? You said that so fast. And I'm so glad, because to me, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Because here's all of these people that you don't know. They're singing something probably personal. I mean, I know the song itself is like a party song, fun song, but...
Well, fun fact, Dynamite actually has a secret meaning.
Okay.
So when I wrote Dynamite, when I was writing Dynamite, I was just on the verge of getting sober. And so people always ask me, like, why do you only throw your hands up in the air sometimes? Like, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes. They're like, why only sometimes? Yeah. And it's because the song is actually about surrender. It's like sometimes you got to throw your hands up and just like let go, let God kind of thing. Yeah. And I love that it was like disguised as a party song, but that was really like the heart of where that lyric came from.
Wow.
And then, of course, we dressed, Taio wrote the verses and like dressed it up and made it more of a party song. And that's really what it needed, because when I heard the melody and the track and everything, I was like, this feels kind of like spiritual. It feels like it's a pretty like, if you sing it acoustic, it's like, oh, wow. Like, I throw my hands up in the air. So it's kind of like somber a little bit even. But it needed that like party time lyric to sort of balance it out. And I don't know, I love that it's played like in celebration of things, like you hear it in stadiums at ball games or at weddings or whatever. It's like, it's really like a let go, forget your problems kind of thing. So
I have this theory that when this kind of these secrets and this kind of depth is written into songs, even the pop songs, and when you first hear it, you don't know, but I feel like it comes through subconsciously to the listener.
That's what I like to think too. Yeah. Is that people can feel it. People can feel the heart, even if it's not super obvious on the surface. They can't
identify, but just for some reason it's connecting with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I could see if you have a whole stadium of people, wow, validating that experience that you had. That's amazing. When you said you were just about to be sober, or I think I was like newly sober?
I was trying to get sober at the time, and so I was kind of looking at myself and thinking about my future and my destiny and who I really want to be and all of that. Just self-reflective moment for me.
When was Dynamite? Do you remember around?
I think it was.
We can look it up.
2010, and then
it was around there.
I honestly don't remember.
I'll Google it while we're talking.
I am 12 years sober, 12 and a half years sober. So it would have been, I don't know if I was actually sober yet. I was just like, okay, maybe things need to change, like I wasn't quite there yet.
2010. Yeah, 2010. How long were you not sober? Like, what was that?
Oh, I started when I was like 12. And I was consistently,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was consistently using. I got really into heavy drugs when I was a kid.
Did it start out with like light things and it progresses?
I kind of just went full-fledged, like from day one. Yeah, where I was a raver in the 90s.
Oh, okay. Say no more. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like raver drugs.
Yeah, rave drugs. So I got really into, well, the kids call it Molly these days, but it was ecstasy back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And acid and, everything else. And then that like led to much harder, darker drugs.
Yeah.
And I struggled for a long time. Like my whole teens were fraught with addiction. And then I got a record deal miraculously. I was like plucked from obscurity, moved down to LA by myself at 16.
How did you get the record deal?
I made a demo of original songs for like a 9th grade project just after I had been kicked out of high school.
Okay.
I got kicked out of high school, but like I had already signed up to do this like recording like specialty week where it's like.
And why did you get kicked out of high school? I don't want to brush over all these interesting stories.
Well, I was a bad influence.
Okay.
Like the parents knew that I was up to no good, and I had a much older boyfriend, and like they just rallied together, and the teachers were all in on it too, and everybody just wanted me gone.
Okay.
And I was heartbroken, by the way, like because it was towards the end of my 9th grade year, and so it was like. It was too late for me to go to another school for that year. So I was just like, my whole education is fucked. Like, I'm never going to make these credits up.
Wow.
Unless I go to summer school. And me at that time, there's no way in hell I was going to summer school.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay. So I went to an alternative school the next year.
Did you feel like rejected from like social rejection?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, like, the kids liked me, and like I had friends, I was popular, but I don't know, having the parents and the teachers oust me wasn't fun.
Yeah,
it really affected me. But that was a time when I was like, everyone else was at school 5 days a week, and I was at home writing songs on the piano in my parents' living room, you know? So, but at the end of the year, they did like a specialty week where like some kids would go plant trees and some people would go like feed the homeless or whatever. And like ours was to go into a studio. And so I had already signed up for it and like booked my hours there. So I went in and recorded a demo of original songs, my first songs I ever wrote. And I got a CD burner. This is a 90s, guys.
Yeah.
I got a CD burner where I could do like 4 of them at a time. And I was like, I'm basically like a record label. So I would make like a bunch of them and give them to everyone I would meet. And my friend babysat for someone who knew someone in LA that was like on the fringe of the industry. It was like so obscure.
Yeah.
And they called me up and they flew me down to LA, and the demo circulated. I think it was played, the demo was played on KCRW. Mornings Eclectic or whatever, or the Mornings Eclectic. And then there was a bidding war because like all the industry people listen to that, right? Like that's how they find new talent or whatever.
Okay.
And then I ended up signing a huge record deal and moving down here by myself. So then once I moved here, I didn't know where to get those drugs anymore. And I also was like, okay, now I got something to lose. Like I need to clean up my act.
Yeah.
So I switched from doing like meth to coke, which seemed like drinking a cup of coffee. Like after you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and like now I've got my shit together.
People who haven't done meth, it lasts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it lasts for like 48 hours.
The half-life is insanely long, and
yeah.
Coke is like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
or 30
totally.
minutes
So I was like,
something.
oh, like I'm improving, you know? But it's like it's sneaky. And so and then I was like able to get into clubs and stuff in LA because in Seattle, like there was no way I was getting into a bar or a club. And in LA, they just like didn't card. Like if you were with the right person, you just walk right in. And so yeah, that was like when the drinking part really started. So, you know, I already had years under my belt of using and
years of momentum.
Chaos.
Yeah. Years of chaotic momentum. Oh, wow. Interesting. And when you were raving, what do you think drew you to that scene? Because I raved a little bit too, but what do you think drew you there?
I think like I really didn't fit in with the other kids at school.
Yeah.
And it was very much like divided where it was like, oh, you either listen to like the hip hop radio station or the rock station, or you like pop. And like I was too cool for pop at the time. Like I secretly loved Britney Spears and Spice Girls and all that, but I was like fancied myself alternative, but I didn't quite fit into this group or that group. And I really loved Daft Punk. I loved The Prodigy. I loved Chemical Brothers. Like I loved electronic music, and I had heard about these like mysterious underground raves. This is before it was like $1 billion industry. It was like an abandoned warehouse, and you had to like know someone, and like it was before like the internet, like before social media.
Yeah, you couldn't look up the party online.
No, so you had to go. You had to know someone and like or have the right flyer or whatever, and then go to this abandoned warehouse and party the night away. And I loved it, and I was like, but I would have to sneak out. I was like 14, you know. And so I had like a whole elaborate thing where I would sneak out of my house and, you know, stuff my bed so it looked like I was still in there, and like leave a note that was like, got up early to go to Denny's. And then like my parents would come pick me up at Denny's, and I like smell like cigarettes, and I'm like, my eyes are dilated, and they're like, something's going on.
But they weren't sure?
I mean, they knew I was in trouble, but I was just like, I was so hell bent. Like there was no stopping me. And so eventually they were like, okay, look, we don't know where you're going all night, but we're really worried. So like, where are you going? So like we can drop you off and know where you are. And so they started driving me to the raves, and they would like pick me up at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever.
Oh, okay. So they started, well, at least that's cool that they were like, well, if you're going to do it anyways, we at least want you to be safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're lucky too that this happened pre-fentanyl. And
oh my God. Yeah.
Like, could you imagine?
I just can't.
It's so crazy now.
But even back then they had like drug testing kits and stuff where you could like take your pill to like the little thing, and they'd be like, oh, does this have heroin in it? Like who knows, you know?
Yeah. There's something about the rave scene. A previous guest I had on my show, his name's Tommy Sunshine.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know Tommy?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tommy's like an OG raver, right? And he put it like, to him, raves was like where the one kid from each town school who was kind of like the outcast, or the one kid from each school, they all get together in this beautiful, loving, accepting environment.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it was. I was an outcast at my school.
Yeah.
Like, nobody understood me. I had friends, but it was kind of like, and then I brought a couple of my friends in and was like, kind of like, you got to come with me. And they were like, what? This is insane. Like, I was growing up fast, you know? But it was a really loving environment. And I did feel like I fit in with the freaks, and it was a party for the freaks, you know? And then it became very mainstream, and then it totally changed, you know, and because everyone made fun of me. Like, I wore the fat pants, I had the candy necklaces and bracelets, and everyone at school was like, you are a freak, like, what the fuck? And then like a year later, everyone looked exactly like me. I was like, huh, right. What do you know?
So do you kind of get does that make you think that you're ahead of the time? I mean, because you literally were.
I was just,
that's how I felt.
Yeah, like I sought it out. I was like, what is it? Like, I heard rumblings from like people's older siblings and stuff, and was like, I want in. Like, what is this place? And
you're like, I do have taste. I do know what's cool, because it's so cool for it to go underground, and then you see the EDM become mainstream, and then it crosses into pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because like when I was in college, I was bartending. I was bartending at like the main club in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I grew up in a small town. We talked a little bit off air. I grew up in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump's rally, where he got quote unquote shot.
Wild.
That was my hometown, and it's rural Pennsylvania. I grew up. My family listened to country music and classic rock. No dance music, you know. So I didn't like it when I was in college because I just wasn't exposed to it. But bartending at this local club, the music I was hearing every week was that golden era when pop and house was crossing over. David Guetta, when he popped off, and
Calvin Harris and
Dance Again.
Oh yeah,
even Just Dance with all of that stuff.
Yeah,
the Red One Productions and stuff. Yeah, so I was hearing that, and that was kind of what got me into it. But that's cool for you that you're seeing this crossover happening, and then here you are in LA. It's such a wild experience being in LA too, because you were saying like you and Katy knew each other. It's like a small world when you're in the industry.
It really is, yeah.
And it's interesting to see people that you know, and then they pop off. It's like, oh, now this person's on the show, or this person got a movie.
I mean, you really never know.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, I always tell people, like, when, like, I work with a lot of younger artists, and I'm like, don't be catty to people, because, like, you never know who's going to blow up. And it's like, everyone needs to support each other. It's not a competition. Like, the labels want you to think that, whatever. But it's like, you know, if your friend blows up, then you can be a part of that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to cut each other down. Like, just help each other out, you know?
Witnessing the fame and the number ones and stuff, and the stadiums, and your own career, did you still want it just as bad, or did it kind of change? Yeah.
No, okay. I definitely wanted it. And when American Girl came out, I was like, oh my God, I'm finally here. And I had this like ease come over me, because I feel like I'd been, you know, racing to the quote unquote finish line. Like I wanted my own number one. And I came so close. Like, we got to number 22, and then the label was like, yeah, it's dead. And I was like, what? Like, do you know how hard it is to be like an unknown artist and get it and make it to number 22 on the Billboard chart? Like, I was like, we're so close, but they stopped putting money into it. I was devastated. They were like, move on to the second single. So the second single was Slay, and I was all ready. I was going to open up for the Jonas Brothers on tour, and which would have been a career-defining like exposure for me.
Yeah.
And we were rehearsing for months. We were set to leave the next day. We shipped, all of our gear was already in Phoenix where the tour started. And the day before the tour started, the Jonas Brothers broke up.
What?
And I was like, what just happened? Like, it's just, I have such extreme luck, you know? It's like I either strike gold or like everything falls apart.
Wow.
So the Jonas Brothers broke up. I was like, what am I going to do? The label was like, well, I guess that's that. And I was like, no, it's not, bitch. So I reached out to Amy from Carmen, who is now Queen Herbie on TikTok. I don't know if you're familiar. She's incredible. Incredible rapper, incredible writer, beautiful, whatever. She's extremely talented. And the band Carmen, let me open up for them. So I put together the tour. I fronted the money. I was like, I'm making this shit happen. I'm not giving up. And we went on the tour. That's where I played all those songs. And that's how the fans learned all of these songs. Wow. And then halfway through the tour, L.A. Reid called me up and was like, yeah, no, we don't think Slay's a hit. And I was like, okay, but I'm already out here. Like, I'm already promoting it. Like, let's just give it a second. Nope. And so I was like, I called my manager and was like, I want out. Like, I already had been held hostage at the first label for like 6 years. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. Get me the fuck out of here. And so I left, but I had to leave all those songs behind.
Right. And so you re-recorded them all. You said you pulled a Taylor, which is amazing. And it's just interesting that it's also cool that you were able to do that, because now that Taylor has done what she's done, the new contracts in the industry have clauses saying you can't re-record. I'm seeing that with singles that I have.
I know. It's really unfortunate. But I mean, like, good for her. But also, I mean, I understand why a label would feel that way, because like any artist could just like take the money and run essentially and be like, great, thanks for that. I'm going to go record it myself and whatever. You're not going to get anything. I understand. But it's just, I mean, good for her. She got hers.
And she showed what could be done.
Yeah. So I mean, it inspired me. And lucky for me, my deal did not have a re-record clause on it. Yeah.
So you got to re-record everything. You put out the new album. And you experience being on a label and also independent artist. And I'm curious what that's like, because a previous guest, Kaisa, was on here and she had talked about how she realized through her experience with Hideaway and then now as an indie artist that some artists are genuinely like major label artists. They're meant for that, and other artists are really not meant for that. They're really better off as an independent artist, and she realized for herself she's much better off as independent because she has freedom. Because a lot of the stuff she was wanting to do, the labels kept saying like, no, we don't want that. You can't do that. We just want you to do Hideaway, and we want you to just do like milk this one thing. Yeah. So what is it? What do you feel about that?
I think that I know too much. And so I think that when you first come into the industry and you don't know anything and you get a record deal, you're like, okay, great. Like, I don't, like, these people will run it for me and I don't know what I'm doing. So great. And like, what a luxury, right? But then like once I had been, writing hits and been around it and like seeing people get fucked and seeing labels mess things up, whatever. And I as soon as I saw like smoke, I was like, I'm out of here. Yeah. So I think for me, like, I would love to have the funding of a major label, but I'm so hands-on. I do everything myself. I direct the videos, I edit the videos, I record my own vocals, I write the songs, I produce, I do everything, and I creative direct. And I think I had a lot of really unsettling experiences with labels telling me how to look, telling me how to talk, telling me what I can and can't do, who I can and can't collaborate with. And I've never been good with authority, put it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't even finish high school. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't like being held back when I know what I want and I know what I want to do. But being out here indie these days is tough. It is an uphill battle. Yeah. I'm grateful to have the creative freedom, but there are definitely times where I get like, option anxiety, where I'm like, I kind of wish someone would just tell me what to do. I don't know, where it's like a million questions every day of like, what do you want to do about this? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, can someone just decide for me, So it would be nice to have a collaborator, but it's just like, you don't know who you're getting into bed with, like, and these contracts are so ironclad and insane that it's like, I'd rather just stick it out and do it myself. But that I am open to it, if something made sense. I think ideally I'd love to do an imprint, which is where I have like my own little label under the umbrella of a bigger one, where I can keep creative control, but I have the major label funding. And then I can sign other artists and kind of like run the show. Yeah. So that's ideally what I'd like to do, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
You already have other songs for the next album, right?
I do, yeah.
I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm probably I'm still riding with Hot City. I'm probably going to do a deluxe. Okay. Because there were a few songs, like all of the songs on this album were curated by the fans. Like, I found a forum online that was all dedicated to this unreleased album. And so it's like 500 pages long. I didn't read the whole thing, but I went through and like got the highlights of like what people want and like listened to the comments that I was seeing on TikTok and stuff and was like, okay, what do the fans want? I put together all of the songs that I thought they wanted. And then once it came out, there were still some ones that they were like, I can't believe you didn't include this and that and the other. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give the people like everything they want. I'm excited to do a deluxe too, so I can do some like remixes and whatever. Yeah. So I'll do a deluxe of that. I really want to tour. And like, I may have a tour coming. I can't really talk about it publicly yet, but there may be something coming in the fall. And then I really want to give Hot City its moment to shine. Yeah. Because I feel like there's still a lot of life there. And then I have a full other album that I wrote just before the pandemic that is some of my best work, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's still like pop, bops, and whatever.
I was going to ask, is it a similar vibe or different vibe?
I mean, I love pop. I am a pop head. It's definitely more, a little bit more experimental, and it's definitely more raw and emotional. Not sonically, like it's still gonna have all of the good sparkly synthesizers and bops, but the subject matter is a lot darker and deeper. I was in an emotionally and whatever. I was in an abusive relationship with a narcissist, and I escaped that. And this was kind of like my first time. It's a rebirth album. It's really like waking up and knowing my worth, and it's kind of like the story arc of, the love bombing to like total destruction and then rising again. So it's very deep and emotional. And I kind of feel like right in this moment, like the world is hurting, and I feel like people want escapist pop. And so I'm like, great, I have more of that for you. Let's just like ride out the storm and just like party for a second, and then we can dance and cry.
Yeah. I was listening to your album on the way to the studio today, just the sun shining, and it's such a good vibe to it.
Thank you.
What influenced you into that space for the songs you were writing for Katy, for this album? Was it the time, the 2010s, the era, or can you think of your own influences that led you there?
I think that growing up, I was raised on like MTV. Like every song that I consumed had a music video. And so I'm a really visual writer. Like when I write a song, I see a music video. And I like the kind of titles in songs where you hear the title and you can see the music video in your head immediately. Like you get the theme,
Yeah, like Hot City.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that like stuff from the 80s and 90s is like are my biggest influences. I really love 80s music. I love synthesizers. I love Prince. I love Michael Jackson. I love Madonna. And then later, because then in the mid 90s, when we went to like Nirvana and stuff, which is all fantastic, but just like not what I chose to listen to, we ended up back in pop again, where Britney Spears and NSYNC and all that came back, which is all Max Martin, by the way. And it was kind of like borrowing from that same era of just like big, colorful, melodic songs. Like I love that. I love a sing-along chorus,
I never put the two together. I always have known Max he's known for his big anthemic choruses, but I never correlated that with the 80s, which it is, the big 80s anthem. I see that. I see that, the bigness there.
And I mean, those are the songs that lasted. Like you still hear those on the radio or at weddings or at, like there's something about those songs and that type of pop that is so iconic and universal, and it lasts,
It does last.
It's evergreen.
And your songs are so catchy. I have to say, I was slightly annoyed, but slightly like impressed that after I saw you perform at the Hotel Cafe in LA, American Girl was in my head for literally days.
Good.
Just on loop. American Girl.
Thank you.
And I was like, wow, she is living. I was so impressed because it's so catchy. It just kept looping and looping just randomly throughout the day. I'm like,
well, thank you.
Wow.
Good. It worked.
It's amazing. It's just so interesting how songs can be catchy like that. We should play some of your stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll go play a little bit of American Girl.
Great.
And then maybe Forever 21?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See if I can fast forward a little bit.
I fell in love in a 7-Eleven parking lot. Sat on the curb drinking Slurpees we mixed with alcohol. We talked about all our dreams and how we would show them all. Whoa, I told him I got a plan and I'm gonna dominate.
Your vocals sound so good in this.
Thank you.
It's so good.
Thank you.
It's like a classic. And I love the guitar in it because it adds the energy of it.
Yeah, the crunch.
That's what makes me really like this song.
Thank you.
It gives that kind of bite to it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I like pop music with teeth.
Yeah.
You know?
Me too.
Like there's lots of great bedroom pop out there. There were some incredible songs that came out that were like really minimal and beautiful and delicate. And there's a place for that, and I appreciate it and I love it. But like I like my pop music with teeth, which is why I love Lady Gaga so much. I really love Lady Gaga.
I wonder where she's going to go next with her. Like I wonder if she's going to go back to some of the early stuff.
I don't know. I am such a fangirl. I have so much admiration for her. I feel like we would be best friends. Like, give me a call.
Yeah. Give me a call, girl. Okay. So when you were writing, you were doing the piano
for American Girl?
vocal thing? Oh, no, I'm talking about when you were growing up.
Oh, yeah. I started writing on piano, which was, that was an issue when I signed my first record deal because I wanted to be Madonna. But the kind of music I was writing was like Fiona Apple, Carole King, because like the only tool that I had was a piano. Like I didn't know anything about production. I didn't even know what a producer was. So when I made my first album, I was like, this feels like a lot more chill than I was hoping it would. But I didn't have the language or the experience to explain who I wanted to be because I wanted to do like dancing music video. That was my vision. But it took me a while to like figure that out and figure out how to communicate that to the label. And also once I did communicate that, once I figured out what I wanted, they were like, yeah, but we signed you because we wanted the next Michelle Branch. And I was like, who, by the way, I love Michelle Branch.
But that's not what you see for yourself.
I didn't know what I wanted yet, but I knew that I feel like if I had played guitar, I'd be like, okay, at least I can rock out on a guitar. I hated being stuck behind a piano. I really hated having to sit down when I performed. Like it and also like I don't love piano rock. You know what I mean? Like with a guitar, like I can see Michelle Branch rocking out, and I'm like that. I mean, I can't do that. I wish if I could do that, then I might feel better about this. But I was stuck, girl behind the piano. I was more in like Vanessa Carlton land, which like was like hot AC, which is legit and cool, but it wasn't like who I felt like I was as an artist.
AC adult contemporary.
Yes, adult contemporary, which is like Adele, and like it's like it's a little softer. It's beautiful, and I love that kind of music. But like I mean, listen, this is a time when I was like just getting off of meth. Okay, like I was not like singer songwriter girl. That wasn't who I wanted to be. Like I was like raging, and I had all of this energy and all of this angst that I wanted to get out, and I feel like they wanted me to be tame and polite, and I didn't want to be. That wasn't who I wanted to be.
That's not who you were.
Yeah, no.
At the time. I just realized that I'm totally off camera right now, so okay. I'm gonna move one of the cameras while we're talking.
Okay. So it took me a while to kind of marry. Well, I didn't really discover, like I didn't find a collaborator that could do what I wanted to do until I met Oliver Goldstein, who ended up being my boyfriend for 8 years, but he was half of the group Oliver, which was an electronic group. Actually, Oliver hadn't formed yet. He used to be in I'm a Robot. You remember I'm a Robot?
No, what is I'm a Robot?
It was like an indie sleaze, like kind of around, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but when I started working with him, he made this incredible electronic mixed with analog music, and I was like, oh, finally someone that understands what I love. And so it was kind of like love at first kick drum with him.
Love at first kick drum. That's so cute.
Yeah. And we had a long, tumultuous relationship, but we grew together. We like kind of came up together in the biz. And I finally felt like I was like, okay, now I can make the kind of pop music that I want to make. Like I also didn't really understand like pop. It was pop. Like I wanted to do pop, and that really kind of.
You didn't identify that at first.
Like I was like, who am I? I'm full of music, and I'm writing all these songs that like don't match who I am, and like how do I find like what the word for it is exactly? Because I didn't want to do just straight up techno. I didn't want to do straight up rock. I didn't want to do like bubblegum pop. It was like something in between. And Ollie and I really found that together. Yeah.
When you were in high school and pop was like, you were saying you secretly loved pop, low key. What was it that you didn't want to admit that you liked pop? Was it like the culture of the school?
Yeah, it was like the people that I knew that liked it were just like not very nice to me. Like it wasn't my tribe, And so I was like, I don't want to identify with that. Like, and also I was like so full of like deep, dark, twisty things that like it didn't make sense for me to like pop, but I think that probably the reason it appealed to me is the same reason that I feel like my music appeals to people now, is because like it's an escape. But I also was really into like Radiohead and Portishead and like, you know, I love electronic stuff and whatever. But it was also just like corny. Like I thought that pop was corny, but then I secretly would like, you know, want to learn the choreography to Hit Me Baby One More Time. Like I was a TRL girl. Like I loved TRL. Yeah. But then like, you know, on the surface I wanted to appear very alternative. And so I was like, like fuck that pop shit.
Yeah. Just keep it on the side. Did you now that you've had these years of being sober and the separation, have you processed why you think you were like, do you have an addictive personality, or is there something in your childhood that drew you to this kind of chaotic life? Like for me, my thing is I have ADHD and I went a lot of my life undiagnosed. And so when I look back at some of the suspect behaviors that I had, I realized that for me personally, I was self-medicating and I guess coping with things that I didn't realize I had. But for you, like, did you ever?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, yes, I have years and years of therapy. But it runs in the family, you know. It is like a genetic thing. And also, like, I have an older brother who I love very much. He's my bestie, but he's 5 years older than I am. And so he went off to college when I was like 12. So then, and like my parents' marriage was kind of falling apart. And so it was like just me in the house with my parents who were, you know, loved me and were great parents, but there was a lot of tension. And I rebelled. I don't know. And then like once I had a taste of like the relief that I felt from drinking, it was over. It was game over for me. And I also really, I wanted, like I was very drawn to like the dark and weirdo twisty stuff. Like I loved horror movies when I was a kid. I loved like, you know, Courtney Love and like all the like badass like 90s like heroine chic, like aesthetically I was like, I like this, and like I want to be a bad girl.
Cruel Intentions.
Yes. I wanted to be a bad girl. And I also got such a relief from using whatever it was, and I liked having this other identity because I felt like an outsider. I felt like I didn't fit in. And so then suddenly I could be like, okay, well, I'm gonna just like wave that flag and be like, yeah, I'm a freak, you know. But then once I got caught up in it, then I couldn't escape.
Yeah, it's glamorized. A lot of it's glamorized, especially that era you're talking about with Courtney Love, and so we kind of see it in the movies and on TV, and it just seemed like that. Yeah, that would be nice. And then you try it a little bit, and you do have that relief that you experience. So I can understand that. Okay. Well, we just played American Girl, and my favorite song on the album is Forever 21.
Thank you.
I want to play it.
Okay.
Is there a story behind it that you want to share?
Yeah. So I wrote Forever 21. This was closer to when I actually was getting sober, because Dynamite was just me being like, okay, maybe things need to change. And then by the time I got to Forever 21, which is a few years later, I was like, okay, I'm like killing it in the industry. Like shit's going really well. I already fucked up my first album deal. I don't want to do that again. I need to grow up, and I need to probably leave this party girl thing behind. So it's kind of like a bittersweet goodbye to that. It's sort of a satirical with a wink and a smile, talking about like being a hot mess, you know?
Yeah.
But also I had an assistant at the time. It was like my first assistant that was like a friend of a friend or whatever. And she like had a credit card of mine where she would like get groceries and like help me because I was working so much and traveling and stuff. And then I started seeing all of these weird charges on the card, and I was like, what is going on? And one of them was like a full shopping spree at Forever 21. And I was like, bitch, like, what are you doing? Like, where have you been? Like, I was like, did you not think I was going to see this? And she was also struggling with addiction and stuff. And like, I think I had maybe just gotten sober, and I was like seeing that and being like, yeah, that's like really just encapsulates like why I want to get sober, because like, I'm not going to be like that. Because I used to do stupid shit like that, you know? And so Forever 21 kind of made a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many layers to that, and that phrase, Forever 21. That's cool. I'm going to play it. So the music video on IW Radio, we're watching the music video. It's like a prom, right?
It's a wedding.
Oh, it's a wedding. Okay.
I can't get nothing right. Anyone can tell you.
I'm a sloppy bridesmaid.
Love the hair though. It's super bright.
Thank you.
Sloppy.
So I decide I'm going to go up and make a speech, and then things go horribly wrong.
Jeez. How do you describe what you're doing right now? Air blowjobs?
Yeah, double D.
Yeah, I love. That's my favorite.
Thank you. I had so much fun making that music video. I got all my friends to come in and do it for free. Where I was like, hey guys, like we're indie here. We're on a shoestring budget. If you guys want to come to my fake wedding, I'll feed you and we'll have a great time. And everybody showed up and they're so funny. Oh my God. All of the reactions of the extras in the wedding party and stuff and the guests that's like the best part. So it gets progressively worse and worse and worse because I wanted to portray this, but it seemed like the obvious thing would be like, oh, like a house party with solo cups. And like, how do we paint the picture of like someone that's too drunk, right? But like everyone's drunk at a house party. So I was like, what is like a traditional kind of setting where it's like you're not supposed to get that drunk. And also I think
be inappropriate.
Yeah, or be inappropriate. And like obvious things like, you know, the tossing of the bouquet and like I fight the bridesmaid that catches it and like knocking over the cake, like all those things, which we've all been to a wedding and seen that person or been that person.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I feel like this is a good world for that to live in.
And this just came out, right? 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Wow. And did you write all the melodies with this? Like,
yes.
It's so good. The melodies are so good.
Thank you so much.
Where does she get this
Thank
ability
you.
from?
Well, I co-wrote this with my friend Kelly Sheehan, who's an incredible songwriter. I also wrote Hot City with her. And then Vaughn Oliver, who was the other half of Oliver back in the day, and he's done stuff with Nicki Minaj, and he did Super Freaky Girl and a bunch of Ken Petra stuff, whatever. He's incredible. So he produced a song and the three of us wrote it. And yeah, I mean, but yeah, on my own stuff, I'm writing most of the melodies. Like that was one thing that I learned so much from Max, but like I wasn't really allowed to spread my wings in like melody land as much. Like every once in a while he'd let me change a melody here and there. But like he's the genius. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't question Max.
When you're learning from Max, is it instincts or is there's a formula? There's a formula?
There's definitely a formula.
Okay.
And I remember like I went and wrote a melody and brought it back to him and he was like, this is wrong. And I was like, what do you mean wrong? It's art.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, there's no right and wrong. And I was like very upset and I went and cried in the bathroom and I was like arguing with him and I was like, oh my God, like what do you mean it's wrong? It's, you know? And then like the more I learned about the pop formula, I was like, he was right.
Does it have to do with like the root and the thirds and the fifths and...
No, it has to do more with symmetry.
Okay.
It's like the Swedish math. Max is Swedish, and there is like it's like a math equation that equals like pleasing to the ear. You know, it's syncopation. It's synchronicity, or not sync. Well, that too, synchronicity. But what did I say? Where it matches. Sorry, I'm done. Symmetry, thank you. Symmetry, and also like each part of the song starting on a different beat and a different note so that each part of the song feels like fresh and new. There's just certain things that like, you know, that can make a song drag, you know? So if you feel like your song is dragging, if you happen to be a songwriter, if your verse starts on the one, then your pre should have a pickup and your verse or your chorus starts after the one. So it's just like all these little
one
tricks.
like the downbeat.
Yes, one being the downbeat, yeah. Because then each section feels like its own unique thing and it feels like it glues together better. Whereas like if every part of it all starts on the first beat, then you start to feel bored. Even if it's on a different note, you're like, there's just something that keeps it exciting and fresh.
Yeah, and listening to the chorus of Forever 21 and you have that where you're saying OOOs. I don't know what you call that. Is that
it's a post-chorus.
Post-chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're writing it, you're thinking to yourself, this needs a post-chorus? Is it kind of just a natural thing?
Yeah, I think that, you know, especially when you have like a wordy chorus, then I think it's nice to have like something that's easy to grab onto for a post-chorus. So it can be like, okay, like usually you put the title there where it's like you repeat something like, you know, Ella, A, you know what I mean? Like everyone remembers umbrella from that part. But if it was just like a passing lyric, then you might not be like, oh, okay, this is called umbrella. So it's just like kind of driving the thesis home of what the song is about.
I love this intellectual approach to it.
Sorry, if you're not a songwriter, you might be really bored with this. But
I think it's so fascinating. When you wrote Forever 21, did you go in with the song title, or were you just kind of like storytelling and then it came out?
Yeah, I had the song title. I knew I wanted to do something like that, and I wanted to kind of live in like Dancing Queen ABBA world, like melodically, because like Dancing Queen has this beautiful, bittersweet, nostalgic feel to it, and that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be kind of like, you know, the dying embers of a bender, and like the last, celebrating the last hurrah. You know,
what do you think gives it the nostalgic feel? Is it the chords?
Yeah, I think it's the chords and the melody. I think because it's not all major, like it is technically major, but when you don't start on the root, then, and you start on the, I don't know if it's I don't even know, whatever. I know music theory, but I'm losing it right now. Yeah. But when you start on a minor chord instead of starting on a major chord, but then it like resolves and it feels like it's uplifting, but then you go back to the sad, like it's the dancing and crying thing, you know, it's.
Yeah. I wish I could see what the chords are for this song. I'm curious if it's like a different note on the bass as opposed to the chords.
It depends on how you play it. Yeah. But it's also like, I just actually.
Or if there's any jazzy notes in there.
I just actually have been learning it on the piano because like I wrote it with a producer, as I do most of these songs. And so like I have to learn the chords after the fact where I'm like, what was that again? Like, so I'm learning it on piano, and it's really pretty. It's really kind of sadder on the piano, but it's nice. I don't know.
Wow. I could hear it being sadder on the piano.
Yeah.
When you were writing the song, were they doing production as you were going, or was it being written on an instrument, or was there a beat?
Vaughn and Ollie had a beat already, or I think Vaughn had started it, and I was like, this is so sick, I love this.
Like, are they playing you different beats that they've come up with, or do they come in with something specific for that session?
For that one, I think that I had heard that beat in passing because we all worked at the same studio, and I was like, what the fuck is that? That's incredible, I want that. And he's like, okay. But a lot of times in pop sessions, like the producers will have a folder of beats. Yeah. Or just like starts, like ideas.
Song starters, right?
Yeah.
And then they go through and you see what resonates with you. And you're like, oh, let's try that one.
Yeah. And I usually I have a list of titles. Like I have a whole very long list of titles. And so I'll kind of let the track play and I'll be like, oh, does it feel happy? Does it feel sad? And I'll just read through the titles and be like, which one looks like how this sounds, you know? So I try to match a title to a track.
Do you go in with song titles, like a whole list of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Does this former assistant know the songs written about her? Do you think?
Or maybe if she heard the story, she would know.
She would know now after the story. Have you? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've never named names or whatever, but
and I wonder if the narcissist is gonna know whenever the next album comes out.
He gonna know.
He's gonna know.
He's definitely gonna know.
Too much specific detail not to know.
Yeah, he's gonna know.
Wow.
I warned him.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure he's shaking in his boots, whatever. He'll spin it and make it my fault, you know, how they do.
I wonder if it feeds into the narcissism, or does it?
I don't know. I mean, I thought about that, but then I was like, whatever.
I mean, who cares?
I don't care.
Honestly,
yeah. If I can save the next girl from him, then I've done something right.
Do you know, what were there any red flags in the beginning that you just didn't see that now seem so obvious whenever you start dating a narcissist?
Oh, now I see it from a mile away.
Okay. What can you tell us what they are? What were some of the things that were a little off that now you see oh, that was actually...
Yeah, the first thing was that he had a girlfriend when I met him, and he didn't tell me for several months. And we had been working together, and it was oh, I was falling in love with this person. And then flippantly, he's oh, but nothing had happened because we were just working together, but there was obviously something happening. And then he was oh yeah, my girlfriend drives the same car as you. I was excuse me, what? Why are you giving me gifts and calling me late at night? What? Wow. I thought we were something was happening, whatever. So that was the first red flag. But also he would just overreact to things where I would think he was kidding, have a tantrum, and I'd be very funny, and then I'd be oh my god, you're for real?
You're serious?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So look for the secrets. I dated somebody once who, I don't know, so much time in, maybe a couple months in, I found out that their name was different, actually.
Oh, boy.
I was at their house, and the roommate referred to them by a different name, and I was why are they calling you this name.
Yikes.
And he's like, oh, that's actually my real name. And I think he's a narcissist too.
Mm-hmm.
But his explanation was that he was a model, which is true, for...
Right, he had like a stage name.
He had a stage name. Yeah. So that I knew him by his stage name.
Yeah.
That's like on all his socials. But I was just like, you would think at some point you would tell somebody this isn't my name.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird to go off of a fake first name.
Yeah. After I broke up with this guy, good riddance. When I like got back into the dating pool, I took a year of where I did not date anyone. I was like celibate. I just was like, I need to be alone. I need to heal from this because it was so traumatic. But when I started dating again, it was like my spidey senses were like on overdrive. Where like I went on a date or a couple days with a guy, and then I was busy as I always am, and he texted me, and then it took me like 8 hours to get back because I was in a session. I don't have my phone on in the session, whatever. And he was like, hello, like, why are you not? I was like, I don't know you. I don't owe you a text back. I am a busy woman. And if you're going to go ahead and throw a fit like 2 weeks into knowing you because I didn't text you back fast enough, then you're goodbye forever. And I never talked to him again.
Wow.
And I was like, this is great. I honestly am so grateful for this like traumatic experience because I learned so much about myself, about my own codependent stuff, and also like what to look out for and like what counts as abuse. You know, like it's easy to, if someone's not putting their hands on you in a violent way or whatever, then you can sometimes not recognize that you're being abused. But there's plenty of ways to abuse someone without laying a finger on them.
Wow. Was there enmeshment? Did you experience enmeshment? You said codependency.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you ever study attachment styles?
Not a lot. Like I know a little bit about it, but I want to, and I've actually been thinking about that recently too. Where I'm like,
okay,
yeah, because I'm also working on this next album and stuff, and like that's definitely relevant to the whole situation.
Because I can relate to some of the things you're telling me about, like your past experience and even personality traits and stuff. And for me, I was fearful avoidant was my attachment style that I've learned about and I've healed from. But check it out. I'd be curious if I'm no professional, but I would guess that you were probably a fearful avoidant, and maybe you because some of the things that you've experienced and you've told me
is that like it's fearful avoidant, like when you're kind of aloof and like
it's the hot
hard to reach.
It's the hot and cold partner. It's the hard to read partner. It's the I want love. It's like I want it, and it's like I want it up, go away. It's like the push pull partner.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
It's like you want love, but you fear it. And it's because we grew up. For me personally, I grew up in a chaotic household. And I never knew like what version of my parents I was going to get. So you become like hyper vigilant. And a lot of kids, my parents weren't addicts, but kids of addicts definitely become hyper vigilant because they don't know which version they're going to come home one day and maybe mom's like in a good mood. And then they come home and mom's like violent. So then they become hyper vigilant, and it's like they want the love, but they also are fearing it because they don't have a solid attachment. So then they grow up in life with this like, they don't have a way of, they don't know how to attach to somebody. They're like disoriented kind of, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah. But I will say what I learned from my therapist, and she's the reason why I have the show, by the way, because I was studying attachment styles, and in one of my sessions, she's like, oh, have you ever thought about having a podcast? I was like,
no way.
Yeah, she planted the idea. And
That's
I was like,
great.
No. And my manager at the time had a show here. But she was telling me that a fearful avoidant, I mean, you have superpowers. So the beautiful thing about becoming a fearful avoidant is when you're healed, you actually still, you maintain a lot of the character traits, but in a healthy way. So for instance, like I'm still hyper vigilant, but now that I'm healed, it just makes me like a really good DJ.
Right.
And I would say it's what makes me a host, because like the way I interview is like I'm really present, but I'm also kind of just like going off of what you're giving me. Like I'm hyper vigilant. And so I think it makes me a better host, and it definitely makes me a better DJ because I'm reading the crowd and I'm constantly seeing like how they're responding to the songs because I'm trying to keep them there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned about like being an empath and how I'm, kind of a magnet for narcissists. And so I've kind of learned to protect my energy.
What does the empath do?
Empaths are, I mean, look, it's woo-woo, whatever, but like I feel what other people feel.
Right.
And I really like absorb other people's energy, which makes me like kind of easy to manipulate in that way. Like if someone is like, I'm going to hurt myself if you do this, then I'm like, no, rather than like, wow, you're manipulating me, you know?
Right.
I just like, I give people so many chances. Like, I always see the good in people, and it's like to my detriment where I just give people too many chances. And I've learned about that, and I've learned about boundaries. And
I was just going to ask you, are you good with boundaries now? Yeah.
You know, I'm getting better. I mean, absolutely a million times better than I was. I really just was like twisting myself into a pretzel to please other people. And I really lost myself. I really like became a shell of myself for a while, just like doing everything I could to please someone that was not pleasable.
Is that why you say you're glad you went through some of these traumatic things?
Yes.
Because what you're telling me is what you've learned?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, it was just like, you know, that movie Pleasantville, where it's like starts out in black and white, and then like the people start having epiphanies, and then everything starts turning to color, and they're like, whoa, they see the world in a totally different way. That's like how it felt coming out of this, where I was like, oh my God, I've been looking at everything from the wrong perspective, and like not really seeing things for what they are.
But I'm sure it's what makes you such a great songwriter, the empath and the experiences that you've had, right?
Definitely. Yes, I think that being an empath and whatever has, like, I really, really think about how my words and my melodies are going to affect the audience. Like, I really am thinking about the listener when I'm writing. You know, I come from my own place, and like I say what I need to say as an artist, but I also am thinking like, is this going to help someone? Is this going to hurt someone? Is this going to confuse someone, like, and make them doubt themselves or whatever? Like when I've written there was a while long ago where I was writing like very kind of self-destructive song, like kind of like not glamorizing it, but just like being honest about my truth of just like ripping myself to shreds. And I'm just like, is this going to help anybody? Like, there is catharsis in that, but I also am like, I would rather be solution oriented.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a responsibility in songwriting.
Yes, absolutely.
I know for me personally, I've made a pact never to put a song out that has any kind of messaging that I think is damaging or is not the kind of thing that I would want to perpetuate. And like you being in the stadiums and hearing people sing your music, you get to see the impact you can have, good or bad.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that I was deeply affected by the music that I consumed, you know, growing up. And so, yeah, I always take that into consideration.
And do you think, is it harder to write happy songs, feel good songs? Like, is writing the sad, dark song kind of like the equivalent of, say, a comedian using like swear words to be, you know what I mean? Like, there's some comedians that try to be just raunchy and they swear, and then there's comedians like Seinfeld who is like super buttoned up.
Yeah.
And to me, it almost seems like it's harder to do what Seinfeld does.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I wonder, is that the equivalent in pop, or is it just?
I don't know. I mean, it just depends on the person, and it depends on the audience and what you're trying to say. I mean, I think that if I'm gonna do like a happy song, like I want to at least like have some like inspirational undertone or something. Like, I feel like writing a happy song front to back has never really been my style. Like, I always am going to start it with like, you know, things aren't going the best, or like I've seen some things, or, you know, so there's some contrast. So it's like the verse, you're just kind of like, you know, life ain't always easy, and then by the chorus you're like, but it's fucking great right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like if it's like everything's great through the whole thing, then I'm like, I don't know, I like to go on a hero's journey.
Yes, you know? You're on a hero's journey. You are on the hero. Was it heroess or heroine?
Yes,
the heroine's journey. You really are. So we're coming to the end of the show, but it's been such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I'm just grateful to be here. I was so excited when I met you and you told me that you're on the radio and you wanted to have me. Like, you know, I'm just trying to get the word out. And again, like, my idea of success has changed, and I don't need to be number one, but I just want to reach as many people as I can, you know? And so I'm really happy to have a vehicle to do that. So I really appreciate you having me. And it's been such a pleasure. You're a great interviewer.
It was awesome having you on.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to hear the next album.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. For everyone, go check out Hot City.
Yep.
And check out Bonnie McKee, and we'll be following along.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for coming
having
on.
me.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.